right, we're ready.
All right. Call this Board of Supervisors meeting this April 12th here at 2 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. We can all stand for a second for a moment. All right, pledge allegiance. Mr. Barton, can you lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving into public comments. I now open it. We have one person who's signed up. Please keep in mind we usually try to stick to 3 minutes. You're also the only guy, so we'll probably give you a little bit of extra. Mr. Hicks.
I'm Ed Hicks. I live at 711 Front Street here in Livingston. I bring before the board that we have some concerns of the problem that we're having here locally on Front Street with our water and sewer lines. We, the residents, on the Front Street, know this all too well. We have reached out to Jesse Rutherford, Nelson County's Service Authority, Steve Carter on many occasions. DEQ has been notified of this problem also. We've had sewage backup on the following days: February 26th of 2017, October 27th of 2019, September 24th of 2021, and March 24th of 2022. We've sent pictures showing the following problems with this to Jesse. We have sewage back up into our pool house, flooding it on several occasions during these days. Sewage comes out of manholes behind our house and behind Debbie, the Marsh's house. Our toilets, they don't work properly. They just gurgle and backflow and slosh up sewage back up into the house when you flush the toilets. The water lines over the years have been continually bursting, leaving us without water. The water lines at our property isn't even buried. They run on top of the ground, across the creek and ditch between our house and the property next door. It freezes and leaves us without water. From there, all the way down to the street to where it ends behind the board's house. Nelson County Service Authority came out and they heated it up to defrost it for their fix. And then they insulated it just to see it would fix it. That was just a temporary Band-Aid. There have been many breaks in the lines over the years in front of the post office and at the end of the line behind the board's house. There's been so much money spent on these fixes over the years that money could have been spent on new water lines and sewer lines. But it always seems to just be a Band-Aid fix each time. Several years ago, money was allotted by this board to do new sewer and sewage lines down Front Street. Alan Hill was on the board then. He came to our house and personally took us out, showed us in the road where it had already been marked off, where they'd be running it down through Front Street. Well, that didn't happen. Ask him what happened. They distributed the money to a project at Wintergreen. I questioned Jesse on this, but he never got back to me. We need new water lines and sewer lines in Livingston. The Nelson County Service Authority rep, they came out, they said they are old, they need replacing, and to just keep complaining. He said the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We shouldn't have to keep going through this. Our suggestion by the Nelson County Service Authority guy when he came in there, for me to put a one-way valve in the sewer line going from my house out to the where it connects into sewage, so it doesn't back in. That shouldn't be my problem to fix. That's just another fix. We had Casey Smith with Smith & Smith Plumbing come out and run our sewer lines with his cameras to see why we were getting the backup into our house. He found nothing was wrong with our line that was causing this. He said it was the county's water sewer lines, they couldn't handle the load that caused the backup. We had to pay him over $500 for the expense I still haven't got reimbursed from Nelson County Service Authority's insurance company. I know I've been told Nelson County Service Authority is getting bids to have someone come through Livingston and cut out all the trees that have roots growing into the sewer line. Again, that's just another Band-Aid fix. Just spending more money on a temporary fix. We're asking that you get new sewer lines and water lines in Livingston. I asked Jesse again why just recently Wintergreen was getting more money to work on their water sewage system. He said they were getting fined by DEG, and DEG knows about our problem here too. So I guess it's going to take them start finding you before we get something done, because they know about it. They've seen it. We've sent them pictures too. I'm sure the sewage is running into the creek, but as bad as it comes out behind Debbie's house, the county's having to come up and dig up all the dirt and everything around it and replace all of that down to the creek. Not this last one, but the time before, when it overflowed, they never cleaned up around our manhole beside our house. I sent them pictures. They did finally clean it this time when they sent the roto-rooter guys out and run a roto-rooter down through the line saying, that will fix it, but that's just another Band-Aid. That's all we're asking. We need help. We've asked for years and years and years. We need something done to the water lines and sewer lines here in Livingston. Thank you.
Is all these areas documented?
We probably have a record recently from Mr. Marsh, which I did follow up on that with the Service Authority. As Mr. Hicks has said, the system is very old and the maintenance of the system is reactionary more than proactive. That's the problem. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the lines from what's been described to me are old clay terracotta pipe, and there's a lot of inflow and filtration into those lines, and that's what's causing sewer backups. The water lines are a problem. I'm not as familiar with the water lines. I haven't received any complaints about that, but it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, the sewer, we followed up with the Service Authority when Mr. Marsh recently contacted my office, and as Mr. Hicks said, the Service Authority indicated to my office that, and directly to me, that they were contracting with roto-rooter to come in and root intrusion gets into these terracotta lines because they're so old they'll crack and the roots will get into them, and that over time can cause wastewater backups and can be severe enough it gets back into people's properties and outflows from the system. And really, in my experience, I've worked in a very large municipal water and sewer system. The best thing to do is replace the lines, but it's going to cost them. That's going to cost an expense, of course.
So, and for this board's record, I have corresponded with the Service Authority Administration on what the future pass-through is with this, and I think there is some thoughts and concepts of trying to find dollar figures, for especially these major issue areas. Terracotta pipe, I mean, we're looking at very old.
It's very old.
We're, 60, 70 some years in some cases. So anyways, I will make sure I continue that correspondence
Well,
with
you
them.
know what it is, what the problem is.
Yep, it's a good fix. That's right. Service Authority needs to hop on it.
You're part of that too, won't you?
No, that's Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed,
I'll carry the message.
great.
Well, we're just part of,
Sure.
part of the whole thing is anybody is.
Sure. Absolutely. But we need them to get first, so we can do this. So. All right, moving on. Is there any other public comments that wish to speak today? Hearing none. I close the public comments. We have the consent agenda. Unless staff or anybody feels like we need to pull a particular item out to discuss, I would suggest we just approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Reed. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yeah.
Mr. Harvey?
I jumped for you.
That's all right.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Parks?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. All right, moving on. Firefly update. Gary, it's nice to see you today, and you brought your companion.
There you go.
Now,
Good.
we were kind of hoping to get a coffee cup today. That's okay.
Hang in. We'll get you some cups. We'll get some cups.
I've been
You're talking to the right guy. That's why Galen's here.
Perfect.
Get some cups down here.
That's great.
All right, well, I'm gonna kick things off and kind of frame the discussion of what we're gonna speak about today. Yes,
I don't know.
Name.
yes, I'm getting to that.
No, that's the first thing.
Okay. That's right, tough audience. We love to be in Nelson. I'm Galen Creekmore. I work for Central Virginia Electric Cooperative and Firefly Fiber Broadband. My role within Central Virginia Electric and Firefly is, title is Key Accounts Representative, but Key Accounts covers everything from our large power electric accounts to also key partners, such as boards of supervisors. So I travel around to all our boards of supervisors, chambers of commerce, and update folks on both the Central Virginia Electric side and Firefly side. While we're here today, just to update you on our RISE project, because as you know, we have an existing partnership with Nelson, but we also approached you back in August about signing on with us to our VATI application, which you may have heard was successful. And we want to bring an overall update of what that VATI application was and what partners are involved with that. And then Mr. Wood will talk about more of the connection status and construction status of what's going on the ground in Nelson today. We always want to start with thanking our partners that are a part of what we call our RISE project, which is our Regional Internet Service Expansion project. Obviously, Nelson has been a huge partner here. You all have been with us from the beginning. Nelson will be the first county that we finish a universal build out with, and that would not be possible without your partnership. Appalachian Power obviously will be once we finish the CVC build, largest portions will be built on Appalachian Power. Dominion Energy is included here because 40 or 50 homes up on Afton Mountain will be included in that VATI project, which is why it was important to make sure, even though we had a universal service agreement already in place with Nelson County and the contribution you had already made, it was important to make sure you were part of this regional project because their Dominion Energy was also part of that regional initiative. If you'll recall, and just you all know this, but for the public's knowledge as well, the Thomas Jefferson Planning District is also a large part of this project because they actually submitted the application because the application is actually touches parts of 13 counties, and the Thomas Jefferson Planning District was the mechanism by which the money will flow through them and then distributed from the counties and filtered back through Firefly. So that's how we structured it. That's why Thomas Jefferson Planning District. All the counties within the planning district were part of it, so it made sense for them to be the lead applicant. There are other counties in this that are not part of the planning district, but that's how we structured the VATI project. And you all have seen this map before, but again, for the public's knowledge to know the broader picture of the RISE project. As Mr. Wood always likes to say, it is a patchwork quilt of funding to make it possible to build fiber internet in rural areas, and that's just what we've done. As you can see by this map, that Carolina blue area is what I'm referring to as our RISE project today, in large part, again, that VATI application that you all partnered with us on. And Mr. Wood will talk a little bit more about what's been built, what's being built, and what's coming up in the future.
Thank you, Galen. Galen joined our staff a couple of years ago now, and he married into Nelson County, and he lived down in Norwood, and he is an example of a person on the APCO lines that does not have Firefly. We carry him around to remind people that everybody at Central Virginia and Firefly are not connected yet. We'll get to you later. So the areas that are in service, we finished our Market Store substation, our Wintergreen substation, the Colleen substation, the Gladstone substation, midway over in Almall that reaches back in and touches a little bit around Afton, and a number of CARES projects that you funded that are on Appalachian Power. So this covers everything in the northern end of the county, all the way down over toward Faubourg. We don't get quite down to Schuyler. We get all the way to Brents Mountain on 151. Coming down 29, we get down to Livingston where AEP picks up. And running along 29, the CBC portion, we have all of 29 covered, all the way down to Tye River. The Colleen substation covers down through Tye River and over to Shipman and up through the Freshwater Cove, Stevens Cove. The Colleen substation circuit that runs up 56 goes up and picks up where our CARES project takes off and serves parts of Piney River. And 151 out to where it turns, and 56 goes up toward Montebello. So those are all in service. We have 8,100 homes we passed today that have fiber service options. We've got 4,093 active accounts on as of yesterday when I counted a couple days ago. We've installed about 750 miles of fiber in Nelson County and a total investment of over $28 million so far. I think that our investment exceeded, I think I had 25 million when I first came up here, and it was to do all 1,000 miles, and we've got 750 and I'm already at 28. So it's going to be, we know it's going to be a little bit more than what we first budgeted, but it still works. And it works because of the assistance we've gotten from counties and from federal authorities and those type of folks. So this just shows a little bit about this RISE project. Now, we'd already committed to universal service. So these are some areas that part of the money will come from RISE. That's not as big a deal here. Here's what that project officially has in it. There's about 3.2 million of construction in those RISE areas. We're also going to do the Connect America Fund areas, which are areas that we received awards in the FCC Connect America Fund auction a couple of years ago. That's what was shown on one map as other federal funding. So all total in the RISE project, we've got about 7.2 million more to build on top of the 28 million already out there. And the county, we're using the matching contribution you've already given to us, and we'll pick up another 700,000 and change from value. We will end up with the total passings within RISE and CBC being 10,500. We've got 8,800 electric accounts. That shows it's a couple thousand accounts beyond the co-op, and those are effectively the AEP accounts, a few Dominion accounts. There's actually also about 20 or so accounts on Shenandoah Valley Electric up near Love. We'll also pick those up next year. That's one other little piece. We'll end up with about 1,000 miles total fiber built. So here's what we have done. All those places we already have in service. Massey's Mill, we just had an update this morning on a bi-weekly meeting. We've started on the Massey's Mill circuit, putting fiber up, and we are 50% finished with the fiber placement. Now, Gail's going to get back up here in a minute and remind you of the steps of the construction, but it's a good sign that we've got 50% of the fiber up on the Massey's Mill station. We've still got to place the hut. We've got to get it connected with light to Market Store, and then take it on up to Temperance. But the fiber, we've already started construction on up there. Schuyler will probably start in June. It may be the end of May, but Schuyler has a fairly small footprint, and we're building it about 25 miles a week total. So we'll go through that pretty quickly when we get there. In AEP, we've already announced that we're building the Arrington, Shipman, and Schuyler areas that you funded, and that I said we would try to get built in the first quarter this year. Appalachian Power has not quite gotten on track yet with the speed they need to work at. Last year, when we were doing the CARES project, we asked them to have the Shipman area finished by July or August. They turned it over to us in November. They were amazed we finished in December. But again, it's about 10 miles.
it's not that, in fiber, we move quickly. They put one crew out there to work from time to time. They did that in Arrington. They turned Arrington over to us, at the end of March. We had told them we wanted to finish our work in these areas in March. They turned over Arrington in March. We finished up Arrington, except for one place to cross the tracks as of this week. So again, we moved pretty quickly.
Can I ask a question? When you say south side,
So this is,
to me.
this is toward Phoenix,
What?
toward Phoenix. So it's southeast if you look at the map. I called it east, I called it southeast. It's the other side of the tracks from the cold storage.
So you're there.
It's the post office. We're over there on down toward Phoenix, Lake Nelson. Yeah, all of that, the fiber is up. We've still got to do the splicing and then put the surf drops in. Again, be able to go through the steps, but Arrington, we're making progress on. Shipman, they still have a couple of poles. They've had a couple of poles for 2 months, and we have meetings with them every other week, and I'm pushing them. Every chance you get when you talk to somebody from APCO, tell them send some extra crews down.
So you can't do that, go up 56 until those poles are in there?
So what APCO tends to do is say, well, we finished this little piece and this little piece, you can go put up the fiber over here and over there, but that's not the way we work, and it's not efficient. We wait till it's cleared, we come in, do it all, come back and splice it. So we're working, the folks on the calls with us, I think from APCO understand the urgency, but they're having a problem getting corporate support. They talk about, they've asked for more crews. They've had one crew, and now they've got 2 working on our make ready. They've asked for 3, actually. They're hoping to get the 3rd one. On the co-op side, we have 15 crews who've been working every week for 4 years. And we've told them that we need to get that level of support, not 2 crews or 3 crews. So we're hoping to get APCO up to speed here because we still have a lot of work to do. Shipment, they're just about finished. As soon as they finish that, we'll get the rest of the way down to 56, and that'll get everybody between the co-op lines that come in down at Quinjana from Gladstone. The co-op lines run along the river and up to Midway Mills. 56 back up to the railroad tracks. Beyond that, little bit of CVEC is all APCO. So as soon as they turn that over, we'll start building that fiber. And then Scholar, they've also done a lot of work on. They still have a little more, and that will be timed anyhow to tie into that new area. We're building a new substation down there. We've got to put a hut at that new substation location. And I said, it'll probably June when we're in Scholar doing the CBC piece, and we'll probably tie in the APCO piece at that time. Buffalo Mines up in western Nelson, we've already released for them to do work, and hopefully they'll, as soon as they get the crews finished down here, be moving up there. Then there are a number of other AEP areas around the county. We have already given them all of those and told them we needed. We've asked them to be finished all of their work in all of their areas by August. We're hoping some get turned over sooner, and we'll be ready to work in those areas. The CVEC build out will be finished, fiber build will be finished by July. So we're going to start looking for a place to put crews in June and July, and we need the AEP areas ready so we have a place. We're going to have people we've got to keep employed. So we're working really hard to coordinate that. I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'm letting you know where we stand with these. So AEP, we've asked for them to finish their work by 3rd quarter. We intend to then finish the fiber this year. CVEC will finish the fiber by July. Then we do splicing and service drops. We will get all the CVEC members who want service in the county service this year. We hope to get them by October or November, but it may run later depending on weather, how much interest we have in those things. The fiber will be up by July, and then splicing, then service drops. AEP comes right behind that. We'll be connecting people in the AEP areas throughout this year. The final connections in those AEP areas may go into early next year. And the earlier we can get AEP to finish, the better off we're going to be. We've got 1,000 miles on AEP outside of Nelson County that they need to get to work on, right? And they've got to finish Nelson County first. So we're really pushing them. With that, I'm gonna let Galen real quickly talk to you about the steps again, just to remind everybody, including the public, about what it takes to get this built, and then we'll be here for any questions. And plus, Galen has show and tell because he's been contacted that 5 will be built one day.
That's right. So if your citizens ask, this is an example of the flyer that they will be getting or have gotten in their mailbox. If they're on Appalachian Power, of course. If they're on CVC, they'll receive CVC communication. But this is, Appalachian Power, Firefly, talks about the project, talks about areas in the build. On a subsequent slide, I will show you resources for your citizens on where to go. That's also on this flyer. But I got this in the mailbox yesterday, and I thought, obviously we've been working on it internally, but I've only seen it on a computer screen. So I said, this is what it'll look like if you want to let your citizens know it's coming. This is an important slide that I'd like to highlight because in rural areas, myself included, down towards Norwood on the Tide River, internet has only been available in large part by satellite internet. What your citizens are used to when they think of scheduling connection for internet service is scheduling an install. And that's the hardest part to it. They come out, find someone to put a satellite dish up. The next day they have internet. If they can get that, if they can get that satellite dish installed and wired in, then they're good to go. Fiber, as you know, is a much better project, future-proof technology, permanent infrastructure, but it does not work like that, as you have heard today from Gary talking about the many steps. And as you heard Gary talk about it, it's a much different build when we're building on our own system versus when we need to rely on Appalachian to do that make-ready work steps. And then it's passed over to other contractors. And that's what this slide goes to. So this gets at general expectations of what your citizens might assume when they start to see activity in their area. We assume about 6 months when they start seeing activity in their area of when those first construction crews are coming to when we can begin in-home connections. Because we go through a data collection, which a mailer was sent out saying you'll see folks from NTS coming around to your area doing data collection. That data has to be sent to our group that we work with, and Exxon, who designs that. And that's submitted into a portal on Appalachian Power's website. Appalachian Power then takes that and says, okay, where are they planning to run the fiber? Now we need to make sure these lines are ready to go. And sometimes we need to make sure their poles are on the side of the road that they say they are, because sometimes we run into that where Appalachian poles aren't exactly where they said they were, so they go out field verification. Okay, go make it ready. And at that point, when they say, okay, these poles are ready, then we can start fiber construction. At all these points, your citizens will get mailers saying activity is coming. You'll see these contractors in your area. As you can see, fiber construction. Then once S&N will do our fiber construction, the splicing on those poles, you'll see black boxes coming down the poles. That's a spliced box. And then they'll have different crews, which are drop crews, making those drops to the homes of those who have registered. That's another communication point, again, with your citizens. They'll get another communication point saying, at the fiber construction phase, saying, hey, we're coming through, you should register because we need these crews to know where to build these drops. So again, we're pushing that hard as well. Once that drop is made, they will install a network interface device on the side of their home. It's typically around the house where the electric meter is, since we're already following generally the path of the electric lines to your house. It'll be a gray box, looks like a little telephone box called a NID unit, network interface device. Once S&N calls us and says, hey, this is we have a lit NID down here, has light to it, and Firefly will work with your citizens to then schedule the in-home install. And that's why we say they will see activity, but that doesn't mean Firefly is working slowly. It doesn't mean we've forgotten about them. They're going to see a flutter of activity for 6 months probably leading up until we're ready to, we actually have a spliced piece of fiber that has laser light coming through it at the side of the foundation of their house. We want to highlight this again. Our prices are the same as they always have been. We want to keep that affordable service. And again, we've shown this to you before, but we want to highlight it again. Our basic package, $50 a month. The top gig package, $80 a month. But I also like to highlight is this is symmetrical upload and download speed, which if you've had any other internet service, you're used to hearing the split speeds of 10-1 or 25-3. This is 100-100 or 1 gig, 1 gig, which is great with no data limits. This is what I mentioned earlier, online resources. We have built a page for you to direct citizens to. Of course, they can call us at any time, 833-FIREFLY-1. Online are some helpful maps. We have actually created, if they go to our RISE page, there's some subset groups within that page. One is if you receive your electricity through APCO, there's an APCO page that shows our partner APCO and where we are partnering with APCO. There's also a Nelson County page with a large Nelson County logo on the county partners page that will show the project areas within the county. Just so a lot of times when we say, nope, we're covering all of Nelson, we've not forgotten you, we're building out the whole county. That sometimes is hard for people to believe without seeing it on a map. So there's a visual there and resources online. We'll be glad to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. And of course, I've had, oh, did you have something?
No, I just wanted to say thanks for inviting us or allowing us to come up and give you an update. We'll be back with updates every couple of months until we get this finished, and hopefully we'll start giving you updates before we give any other stock at any other county.
Well, thank you guys so much. I mean, the interactions that we've had, especially with the PDC, excellent. What we were able to accomplish with that, with you guys, Galen, great job, Gary. That was phenomenal. So we're excited to see that pathway. Does anybody have any specific questions for Mr. Wood, Mr. Creekmore at this time?
Yeah.
Mr. Barnes?
I'm just curious, how many of the CARES homes and businesses from last year still don't have service?
Well, if you asked me that last month, I would have told you I think we've got them all, but since you pointed out a few, we found a few and we're fixing those. And I don't have a specific number. There may be a few along 151 that applied last year that we still, because they're concentrating on that because I found that there was a hiccup that left a small group out. Other than that, as far as I know, we should have all the CARES folks who signed up last year. We're getting new signups every week. So there's some folks, I saw somebody from maybe Arrington signed up this week and shipped them last week in the CARES areas that were already there. But the ones who signed up last year, we should be finished, other than that little group up in Pine Grove, we should be catching up.
Any idea when Amanda's mom is going to have internet?
Or she got it.
Oh, she does?
I
Okay.
did, but she.
Yeah.
Amanda's mom has internet.
Okay, good. I have no idea how.
That's good. Yeah, so Route 151, there were a couple of things that happened. 3 different things, and I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but first APCO had approved some poles we didn't know that approved. We got around and back and forth, and that part was a mapping issue, where they showed poles both on one side of the road, and we said we need to get to the other side. They said we've already approved that. Then there were areas where they had CNT telephone poles, Verizon telephone poles now, that we had not picked up as being Verizon poles.
And we had to go back and get another pole attachment agreement to get things in place. And then more recently, when we put in a group of that Verizon poles, we thought we'd cut them all, and I think there was another small area we hadn't cut. So we're finding these things. When you do have issues, we encourage people to let us know as far as getting connected. We've been very fortunate. We have very few issues once we get you connected. System runs really well. We have very little turnover, and that's our intent. Let it just run and be quiet.
As long as we can keep cutting the lines.
If you can keep from cutting the lines, watch for dolphins.
And shooting the lines too.
And when it, yes, duck, oh, yes.
Yeah, season.
So, and we'll do a little more education as we get into various hunting seasons to remind people. People used to shoot into the electric lines, which are just metal wires. So if a shot goes off of it, it damages the wire a little bit, but you don't notice it because it doesn't cause power outage or even blink. If you shoot a fiber line, it goes through the fiber and breaks it, and then we do have an outage. So we need to remind people, first of all, you shouldn't be shooting at the power lines anyhow, but don't shoot at the bottom.
All right, great. Any other questions?
Last question, please. Does, Melissa Gay still work there?
Melissa Gay does work here, and she is on spring break with her children this week. Galen works for Melissa Gay. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
All right. ACRJ, $1 million question.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here. Before I get into my life, I know Steve's retired here, and I just want to say on behalf of the board and his support me over the years, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this stuff down with him and how much he's looked out for the citizens of Milton County that time. So I just want to say thank you to Steve.
Thank you, Mark.
My name is Mark Coomer from the Superintendent of the Albemarle Shelton Regional Jail. Behind me is Tony Bell from Mosley Architects. We're here today to talk about regional jail's renovation and expansion. As you know, we serve 3 jurisdictions: City of Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and of course, Nelson County. I'll give you a brief history of the jail as it currently stands. The original part of the facility was designed in 1975. At the time, it was the Albemarle County and City of Charlottesville jail. It was initially the rated capacity designed for around 209 people. Nelson County became the 3rd member in 1997, and at that time, we also began the last major expansion and renovation in 2000. It raised our capacity to 329. Our average daily population over the years has certainly fluctuated. In 2008, we were as high as 600, and remember the jail was designed for 329. This January of 2022 is the lowest population we've had in that jail since 2000. I've been here 25 years, as low as I remember, at 265. Now that includes 265 people physically in the jail and approximately 60 to 70 people out in home electronic incarceration. Current authorized staffing is 161 employees, and the renovation and expansion area is approximately 56,000 square feet, and will be contained within the current facility's 152,000 square feet. How did we get here? Why I didn't wake up, 2 years ago and say I want to expand and renovate our entire jail. It was a slow process here. In 2019, I had identified several major issues for the board that we need to tackle as quickly as possible. One was replacing all of our HVAC, which hadn't been entirely replaced in the old part of the facility since the 1970s. They're chiller units, and we just keep fixing and fixing. Those are the inmate housing areas. The other was also flooring replacement. We paint floor every single year, but because of moisture in the building, the paint doesn't adhere, so it's causes slips and falls, and it's visually, it's terribly appealing. The total cost of those 2 renovations cost $1.25 million. At that time, the board said, well, if they start pumping money like this, let's not do it piecemeal. Let's get a facility condition assessment in here. Let's find exactly what needs to be done, and let's attack this in a logical, methodical manner. So we had an FCA come in and identify several more issues that we had. It was that time the board said, well, if we're going to put all this money into it, put some mechanicals and so forth, are there any needs that the jail needs? The inmates, the staff, visit professional people, what do they need? And do we need to expand the jail this time? let's look out 15 years in the future and see how many beds we're gonna need. So that's when we hired Mosey Architects. They came in and did a community-based corrections plan. Part of that community-based corrections plan was hold several public comment periods. We did it both in person and virtually, get advice and feedback from all of our stakeholders. Family members, ex-inmates, professionals, law enforcement, public attorneys, and courts, anyone who uses that jail anyway, we wanted their feedback. What do they need inside the facility? What do they want to see? Mosey Architects presented the community-based corrections plan to the board in December of 2021. The board indicated at that time that if we did this, we would seek 25% reimbursement from the state of Virginia. So at that time, we had to submit a resolution to the state indicating we do intend to seek 25% reimbursement of court costs. That was done in December 31 of 24, which was a few months ago. The facility condition assessment, I'll remind you, this solely focuses on the mechanicals and the infrastructure itself. It does not look at needs, it does not look at safety for staff or inmates, it doesn't look at programming, addressing recidivism, just looks at the physical infrastructure itself. And again, they determined several major issues that need to be addressed. Several issues we've been kind of repairing, fixing, band-aid over the last 25 years at least that I've been there. The CBCP, the Community-Based Corrections Plan that Mosey did, the needs study, and this is actually a testament to our all three jurisdictions and the work that they put into that jail. As far as reducing recidivism and reducing the reliance on that jail, is that there's no indication that we will need to expand the jail. We don't need to add any beds at this time. And that, and I'll put that in perspective. In 2004, we did a similar study, not full-blown CBCP, but a similar study in 2004, and it said our population in 2019 should have been 900. So 3 years ago, it should have been 900. Here we are 3 years later, and we're at the lowest population for 20 years. So it says a lot about our community. We're headed in the right direction here. So the good thing is we don't need to add beds.
Can I ask why?
Well, in 2008, that's a great question. In 2008, the population was 600, like I said, and I worked there at that time. And we had inmates sleeping in gymnasiums on mats. We had to sleep in holding tanks, and hopefully they would get out for the action processing. And the board at that time, faced with two decisions. Either we expand the jail again, which we just did in 2000, just 8 years previously, we had just added 180 beds. So if we do that again, because when they built that, they built it so we could do it one more time right next to it. Or do we focus on reducing the jail population? Well, not wanting to spend $25 to $30 million at that time on another expansion, they decided to reduce the jail population. We partnered with Bureau of Justice, brought them in and said, what can we do in the community here to lower our population? How can we start this trajectory going down? We formed a community-based CCJB, the Community Criminal Justice Board, of all three jurisdictions come, and we start identifying major drivers of our population. What crimes are being committed in our communities that are driving our population? How can we mitigate those crimes? Drive-by suspended was one. It was one of the top drivers of our population. You'll be arrested for drive-by suspended operating license. One of those reasons was failing to pay fines and court costs. We then went to the General Assembly and said, you guys got to stop locking these people up, paying fines and court costs and drive-by suspended operating licenses. Costs way more money than it does the fines and court costs they owe. So we stopped doing that. Local prosecutors stopped putting people in jail for drive-by suspended operating licenses. The first, second, third, and fourth offense. Now, fifth time you know you're going to jail. You just haven't learned your lesson. So things like that. We began a robust substance abuse program. Vast majority of inmates had substance abuse problems. We began addressing those inside the jail and our community as well. We also started implementing a risk assessment tool. When you come in, we sit down, we ask 140 questions. We try to determine why it is you continue to commit crimes. Spits out a nice bar graph and says, if you implement these programs as an individual, you're going to mitigate why they continue to commit crimes. We started doing that. We had one of the most robust programs in the Commonwealth of Virginia at that time, especially in the jail our size. So over time, we began reducing recidivism. The community stepped in, started providing more resources, housing, employment, education, job training, and so forth for individuals getting out. And we found just over the years, we've slowly begun to chip away at that population. Now, the pandemic has really took a big chunk of our population. We now use home electronic incarceration more than we ever had. Prior to the pandemic, we had 3 people in the program. 3 months into the pandemic, we had the largest home electronic incarceration program in the state of Virginia, both in terms of raw numbers and in terms of percentage of population. We've worked with courts and prosecutors, and we're continuing that even after the pandemic. We hope that the population will too. That answers your question. A little bit of everything, but the community coming together was a big part of it, all of us working together. So, So we will not be adding beds with this renovation. Anyone in this room? There we go, thank you. So the community-based corrections plan and study findings, this is what's most important. The mechanicals easily understand why we need to replace the HVAC and all that stuff, not very electrical. That's easy. The planning study found that we need to add additional toilets and showers. There are some places we have 14 inmates and there's one toilet in the middle of the floor, 14 people in one shower. That's 1975, that's what that type of design will get you. Most of the older buildings not ADA compliant. Doesn't need to be because we haven't really touched it over the years. Now that we're going to touch it, we need to bring it to new standards. Redesign inmate housing that creates an environment that encourages mental and physical well-being. I had Mr. Reed and Mr. Rutherford out for a tour, and thank you both of you, by the way. And they could tell that with all the noise inside that facility, the doors slamming, the people, it is 24/7 noise, which is not a conducive environment to anyone. Dedicated mental health and segregation is conducive to improving inmates' mental health. 67% of inmates are believed to suffer some type of mental illness, some very severe, some not so severe. But studies show in any correctional environment, 67% of inmates have some type of mental illness. The 1975 edition was not designed to treat mental illness. It treated every inmate the same, regardless of medical condition or mental health condition. It goes to the same cell, same housing area. Even the edition of 2000 did not address our mental health. With this renovation, we will be adding a mental health unit that will be designed specifically to treat mental illness in inmates. Again, replace major mechanical systems, additional inmate classroom programming space. One of our goals here is reduce recidivism, to continue to do so. Every classroom we have, though, with the exception of 2, we have designed or built ourselves using classrooms, office space, and so on. We want dedicated classroom space, enough to handle all of our classes. Currently, we have to rotate our classes, build in space for all our inmates' needs and the number of inmates actually want the program. Again, we've taken those offices away from staff. We want to add more office space back to our staff. Larger public visitation area. One now that has 5 visitation units for almost 300 people. We do 2 30-minute visits per month in person right now because of lack of visitation space. Additional security measures for staff and inmate security measures have not been updated since 2000. No major updates. Renovation expansion needs are identified goals and objectives. So we're looking at 3 groups of people here. Our inmates, excuse me, next slide, I apologize. So one of them is create space conducive to inmate rehabilitation, reduce recidivism. We want to use trauma-informed design. What's that mean? Joel's very loud, all the clanging in the doors and the HVAC and the inmates yelling and screaming or talking, whatever they're doing, the TVs and so forth. Sound deadening materials on the walls to absorb some of that sound. The colors right now is Battleship Gray, which actually I picked that color, now it's looking back, it was a mistake. It's not very trauma-informed design for sure. Sunlight. Mr. Reed, one of the things that we noticed during our tour was the lack of sunlight. There's no direct sunlight. Because of these security measures put on the windows that blocks the vast majority of the sunlight coming inside the facility. Add classroom programming space and integrate technology in classrooms and houses. I can offer a lot more programs from Piedmont, University of Virginia, if they can come in electronically or virtually. We have some of that now, but we like to use a lot more. HVAC, again, we have chillers. It does not remove, it cools the air, but makes the air cool and moist in the summertime, which produces mold. We cannot, it's very difficult for us to stay on top of the mold issues that we have inside the facility. Install air filtration systems effective against virus and bacteria. We learned this the hard way during the pandemic. Our fresh air system is merely a fan at the end of the hallway that sucks the air out of the building, but draws more air from inside the building through those hallways. It's not effective against virus and bacteria. And increased fresh air ventilation. Again, the fresh air we bring in is what we bring in from the rest of the jail as it exits through that building. Conservation of resources. Toilets were designed and built in the 1970s. Are not as efficient as the ones built today. We'd like to install more conservation friendly toilets, shower heads, faucets, and use of natural daylight. Renovation improves quality and experience for all consumers, so I spoke about a second ago. The three groups of people we're targeting here, and any one of these three could hit home with some inmates. When I talk about the improvement space for inmates, I've had people say, why would you do that? Why would you spend taxpayer money on improving that condition for inmates? Someone's opinion, I get that. What about the staff who work there? I have 160 people who work in that environment I just described every single day. I want to improve the environment for them. Community stakeholders, people who come inside of that jail to use the facility for professional reasons. I want to improve it for their health and safety. But back to the inmates. As Nelson County knows, recidivism and high crime has a real cost to it. If I can design this facility, or those the architects or whoever we hire to do this, can design this facility to help us reduce recidivism and let people get out healthier than when they came in, it will ultimately, hopefully, draw less of your resources to treat them once they're gone. If I get them to a healthy place when they leave my door, it's easier to keep them healthy. If I get them to a point where they don't want to commit crimes or don't necessarily need to, or less likely to, let's draw on your resources locally. Stakeholders, new customer service area. Right now, I have to have my attorneys, they wait, before the pandemic, now we use virtual. They would wait for those 5 slots open to see the clients. Again, it's not very conducive, it's not private either. We're trying to separate people as much as possible so they don't hear the conversation. So what I'm going to do with what we got. And a professional visitation of integrated technology. My employees incorporate improved safety and security measures. Again, they haven't really been updated for almost 22 years. That's a few minor upgrades, nothing significant. Providing efficient workflow. And we've had 5 renovations over the years, 3 additions and 2 mild renovations. It made a patchwork of hallways and office space and cell blocks that is not a conducive workflow. It's terribly inefficient. It requires more people to staff than for otherwise built and designed more efficiently. It's applied common core design to staff work areas too. That noise I described earlier, those smells, lack of fresh air, the temperature changes, the humidity. I want to get rid of that. I want to put in those areas too sound absorbing materials, different colors on the wall, so it's more of a less depressive place to work. And along with that, create a work environment for staff, morale, mental, and physical well-being as well. So I'm going to let Tony come up here and talk about the project plan design and construction schedule.
My name is Tony Bell. I'm a vice president with Mosley Architects. And I'm here as your agent and the agent of Coomer and the Albemarle-Charlottesville Regional Jail is your partner to help you solve the issues, to answer questions you might have, and to help you move things forward if you so desire. So if we would move the project forward, this is the proposed schedule. We would start with selection of an architectural firm, maybe Mosley Architects, maybe another firm, but Albemarle-Charlottesville Regional Jail will put out an RFP, select an AE firm, and award a contract. And that would happen in about June 2023. Why that date? That would be the date when the Albemarle-Charlottesville Regional Jail finds out from the General Assembly that the project not only has been approved, but it's also been funded. And you approve to move forward with moving the project forward, knowing that your 25% will be waiting for you when your project is completed. Okay? So doing so before that, you do so at a little bit of risk. The benefit of moving forward earlier would be you reduce the escalation, right? Save money for yourself and also for the Commonwealth of Virginia, but you don't know that they necessarily approved. So that June 2023 date, you know that the General Assembly and the governor have approved it and it's in their budget. Start the design process on or about November 2023. You go through a value engineering process. This is one of the requirements of the jail standards published by the Board of Corrections of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So they require that every project go through this value engineering process. About March of 2024, the construction documents would be completed. The Albemarle-Charlottesville Regional Jail would approve them, and then it would be advertised for bid. Contractors would submit their bids. You would then negotiate a construction contract with the firm, and that would be on or about August 2024. And we are estimating that it's going to be about 15 months, 16 months to complete the construction. Obviously, this is going to be a phased construction project. Will involve some demolition, will involve some new construction, and will also involve some significant renovations to the existing facility. That will be completed on or about November 2025. And at that point, you collect all your receipts, you submit it to the Department of Corrections and Commonwealth of Virginia, and you get your reimbursement back. So what is that cost? Okay, Well, there's obviously the demolition and renovation costs. Superintendent mentioned the fact that we're not adding any rated capacity. That is 100% true, okay? When this project is completed, the rated capacity of Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail will still be 329 inmates, okay, detainees. However, the existing facility will be renovated and portions will be demolished and reconstructed so that it will be more consistent and more in line with the existing jail standards. There are portions of your existing facility that do not meet the current standards. Well, how did that happen? Well, when the jail was originally constructed almost 50 years ago, it did comply with those standards. Those standards are no longer valid. Well, we obviously know a lot has changed with regard to incarceration here in the Commonwealth of Virginia and in our nation. So the current standards require a lot more natural light. It requires a lot more area, square footage. It requires a lot more program space and also special purpose housing. One of the things that the superintendent mentioned a little bit earlier was segregation housing, mental health housing. Those aren't counted as part of the general population beds. Okay, that's not part of the rated capacity. That's above and beyond that. Because the thought is that if you have a mental health issue or a segregation need, you go to those beds, feel your issue, solve your problem, and then are brought back into general population after a period of time. So there needs to be that general population bed waiting for you. So we have the demolition and renovation, we have the new construction costs, we have other costs. These are soft costs. Cost for architects and engineers, cost for furniture, okay? Cost for third-party reviews, special inspection, construction testing, things of that nature. That's in that 7 million. If you add those numbers up, they don't add 49 million. Why? Because what's not shown there is a line for a contingency. Board of Corrections requires you to put an 8% contingency on the whole package for those unforeseen conditions, things you run into that you didn't anticipate. So the total project cost is 49 million, okay? The reimbursable is 12.25. So the total estimated cost for the facility, for the localities is about $36.7 million. We'll go through the individual costs for each locality.
So if I was board and this is Nelson County, what I want to know is right here, how much is it going to cost? So the following analysis, we used Davenport to help us sort this out here. So these are based on the following assumptions. The project here is the schedule presented by those architects. The cost we presented is what we're using here. Total project cost 49 million, where student state reimburses the 12.5 million. Debt service is allocated based on what county share of inmate days. That means however many inmates, whatever percentage of inmates you have inside the jail is a percentage of the debt service that you will be responsible for. Debt is based on a 20-year bond at 4%. Again, all these things can certainly change, but for this point here, this is what this is based on. And locality share remains constant. Numbers below reflect the current share. So it's assuming nobody's percentage of inmates population changes dramatically. So FY23, that's up here, I've already submitted my budget. We're locked in already. Nothing's going to happen here as far as debt service. FY24, we're going to see potentially some cost to additional costs of counties for debt service for architectural engineering fees and so forth. FY25, some more of that architectural engineering fees, some of the starting process. Same with FY26, FY27. That's when you actually start seeing the full debt service hitting your budget, and then for that on for the next 20 years. So if you look right now, operational this year, I've asked Nelson County for $1,238,915. So no debt, that stays the same. FY24, there's a 1% escalation clause, by the way, for each fiscal year. So FY24, 1.2 million plus 20,000 with 1.6. FY25, again, operation 1.25, 241,000 total 1.5. And so on. So we get an actual full debt service mode, assuming a 1% increase for operation. The operational cost would be $1,291,000. Debt service $350,000. That's what it will cost you per year to fund this renovation. For total cost in Nelson County for operation debt service of $1,641,000. So you're looking at additional $350,000 for the next 20 years is the cost in Nelson County. Now, I'm going to show you briefly what Albemarle County, I won't go through all the same Same assumptions, their share would be approximately 1.2 billion of the debt service. They're responsible, as of today, for about 4.5 billion of operational costs. They have more inmates obviously than Nelson County does. City of Charlottesville, their debt service, what it will cost them for this renovation, 1.1 million per year for 20 years, and their operational budget is currently 4 billion. They have less than Albemarle County. So Albemarle County is the most, highest percentage, Charlottesville is second, and followed by Nelson County, the third least of the big. So if I was board, the city, like the citizens of Nelson, I'd be asking, when's this gonna happen? What decisions need to be made? And how's this process gonna work? With that, turn it back over to Tony. He has more experience than I do.
So we talked about what has happened today. So the community-based corrections plan, which consists of the needs assessment and the planning study, was submitted to the Department of Corrections, and they have begun their review. Okay? They looked at the needs assessment, that's the forecast, that's the number of inmates that are anticipated. And because there were no increase, they said we don't need to review that. Okay? We needed to do it to confirm that there is no anticipated increase expected. What does that mean? Well, that means we need to keep working our fingers to the bone, keeping folks out of jail, okay? And I give great kudos out to all of your Commonwealth's attorneys here in the 3 localities because they are doing a yeoman's effort of reducing that jail population. You know, the superintendent mentioned how high it was back in 2008. The reduction has come at the benefit of all of these communities and the citizens that they serve. So we've got to keep doing that, okay? Can't let up on the gas. The jail authority has approved a resolution seeking that 25% reimbursement. That's going to be moved forward to the Department of Corrections, Board of Corrections, okay, the Board of Local and Regional Jails. That basically says we are still moving forward with our plan to design and construct this facility, and we will be asking you for the 25%. So that just confirms to the Board of Local and Regional Jails, keep moving with your review. The box at the top in yellow, we have walked around to each of the 3 localities, Albemarle County, City of Charlottesville, and then today, Nelson County, and made a presentation to each of your governing bodies. So you're the last of the 3 presentations. The application will be made to the Treasury Board for the monies, and that'll be conducted by the Board of Local and Regional Jails with their approval. And that's after they approve the CBCP needs assessment. We've already talked about that. Now they're going to approve the planning study and move that part forward. In the August to September timeframe, we'll be looking to all 3 jurisdictions for a resolution from you individually saying you are good with moving the project forward. You're on board with the plans that you see and the goals that the Albemarle and Charlottesville Regional Jail had set to move the project forward. Would it necessarily cost $49 million? No. We will look at every opportunity to reduce that cost as we go through the project, okay? As we go through the design and planning process. We, or an AE firm that is selected, okay? But that's the top end. That's the end that we've established with the Board of Local and Regional Jails as the most we're going to spend. Does that include escalation? Yes, it does, okay? So that's based on the schedule that we presented to you a little bit earlier. All the escalation is built in, and that's allowed by the jail standard, okay? So we talked about the June 2023 date, and the process that we'll go through from now till then is the Board of Local and Regional Jails will approve the needs assessment. The General Assembly will approve the funding for the needs assessment, and then the Governor will approve the funding for the needs assessment, and it will be in that budget. In June 2023, that's when we find that out. So with that, we open it up to any questions you might have. About process, about design, or any other issues.
How many mental health and segregation beds will the renovation?
Yep. So to give you a little, I'll get to your question, but I'm going to give you a little synopsis of the total package. So we talked about no rated capacity change. Okay. We're going to demolish 65 beds rated capacity. Okay. Why are we going to do that? Well, we need some footprint. Remember, Superintendent said a little bit earlier that we're going to stay with the confines of 152,000 square feet. That's true. There's not a lot of excess of property in that jail. So we're going to need to demolish a couple of the existing wings of the 1975 expansion to get us some footprint. And we're going to build up 2 stories, okay? So we're going to demolish 65 rated capacity. We're going to build 65 rated capacity back in the form of 3 different day rooms, 2 20s and a 25. The 2 20s will be cell, medium security. The 25 will be a dormitory, okay? Now to your question, Mr. Reed. There'll be a 7-bed mental health unit that's flagged as mental health, and there'll be a 7-bed segregation unit flagged as segregation, okay? They're both special purpose. They're both fairly the same in terms of the layout. They're both cell. Okay, mental health and segregation needs to be cell capacity for obvious reasons. We're protecting the inmates. We're also helping them with their recovery. But the superintendent can choose to use them however he needs to, okay? There is no designation, male or female. There is no designation that this shall be mental health board and this shall be segregation care board. So if he needs 2 mental health and he has no segregation need at that time, they could both be on mental health. They'll be set up in such a manner that that can happen easily. They both will have a lot of natural light coming into those 2 suites, as will the 3 new housing units, the 2 cell units and the 1 dormitory unit. So I know that's a long answer to your very simple. I know a long answer to a very simple question. But 7 was the answer.
So which is to say, there will actually be 14 additional beds that are not included in total, that would be vacancies in the other beds while someone is being pulled out for mental health incarceration.
Yes, right. Yes and no. Okay. The yes and no means there are existing segregation suites. I don't know if you, Mr. Rutherford, toured them as part of your tour. They would no longer be used as segregation. They do not meet the needs of the jail. They do not meet the criteria of the jail standards. So we would also be removing them. Because they are not part of general population, because of segregation, we didn't discuss that as far as we're going to be demolishing segregation beds. So I think there's 8 or 9 of those existing segregation beds that will also be taken off. So the net add of beds, 8. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
So there actually is room for 8 more.
Yes, sir, you got it.
Than what?
I know where you're going.
Yes,
sir.
Yes,
I just wondering if, in worst case scenarios, those can be used as dual purpose.
Yes, one of the things they do nowadays that they used to do back in the 70s was flexible space. I mean, everything was just, that's what this is built for, it's all it can be used for. Now what Mr. Mel was talking about is this flexible space, allows me to expand and contract basically. Absolutely.
And I understand that's a short-term scenario.
Right, yes, right.
Any other questions?
Now, certainly, I will more than happy to provide any more tours to anybody, citizens, board members, anyone you think may be interested, reach out to me. I'm flexible with that regard. And also, we will be coming back again at that time. You have me back before then, but at some point I'll come back for an actual approval. But I'm happy to come back as often as like to answer the questions you may have. Sure.
Right.
What is the process as far as it not becoming acting president, but y'all, the state's president?
Great question. That's what we're working on as we speak. After a person's been sentenced for 61 days, they're technically then state responsible. At that point, the state then begins paying us a higher per diem to hold that inmate. It's also at that time that inmate can be transferred to the Department of Corrections to begin serving their sentence there. Currently, 20% of our population should be serving their sentence in the Department of Corrections. But because of the pandemic, the Department of Corrections has shut down as much as possible and takes in only a limited number of inmates at this point. But focusing on jails actually have a greater percentage of out-of-compliance inmates than we have currently. 61 days is the key number there. Working Department of Corrections, we've sent 27 people down the last month. We're getting more and more of those guys out. We're hoping the new law goes into effect July 1 with increased good time for inmates. We'll create more room in the Department of Corrections, meaning we'll get more of our inmates into the Department of Corrections quicker.
do they have built into the system to get back some of that funding from, say, somebody's got, worth a lot of land, so is there any way of getting some of those figure back?
Which figures that, sir?
Well, for what it's cost to keep them incarcerated.
Well, that'd be a good question for the General Assembly, sir. Those go up every single year to increase both per diem that the General Assembly pays local jails. Hasn't made a committee this year, once again. So that's a good question for the General Assembly. Regional jail superintendents and sheriffs, every year we support those bills on behalf of our boards, and they tend not to make it count that are General Assembly.
Because it should be switched over as soon as possible, especially if they've got.
Sure. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Our gentleman who served 2 life sentences, got me down the road yesterday. Oh, this morning. Should have gone one time.
I won't say.
What percentage of the inmates at the jail spend their time incarcerated at the jail and not at prison?
It changes, obviously, but to give you a ballpark figure, probably 80%, 85%.
80% of the people in jail.
Start there and finish there. That age.
So if your emphasis on recidivism, they're there for you.
Right, exactly. Right. So we focus our recidivism efforts on individuals who've been released from our jail. Like I got 2 life sentences. I'm not putting them in programs. It's not going to do him any good. So I won't be giving up the space as soon as get out, going back to Nelson County for a space in my classroom for guys on the way for life. So we focus on our efforts on the local re-entry population.
80% of the inmates spend all their time.
Yes, sir. That's a little low. I'd say actually a little bit more, but I'll leave it at 80%. I would say more. Yes, sir. Part of that is because Department of Corrections is not taking people like they should. So it takes so long to take them in that they pretty much serve their sentence before they get there.
But the thing that is, so any programs you have for these inmates,
Yes, sir.
they're getting.
Yes, sir. And now our average length of stay is 60 days for men. Average. We have people come in drunk in public for a few hours. We have people who've been there for several years. So our average is about 60 days. But what we did years ago was we decided we can't give a 12-week program so we get 60 days. So we coordinate with the community to align with our program. So when a guy comes in, he gets half that program, he gets released, he goes to the community and picks up where he left off, and continues that program. So we work with local probation patrol, integrated restoration, and other groups in the community to carry on that program. So yes, sir. So even if they're not there long enough to get it all, we work with the community to keep it going as much as possible.
If I could ask Superintendent, one of the real big requirements, Mr. Barton, is making sure you have the facilities to implement the programs. If you don't have a classroom to hold class in, it's hard to hold class. So that's one thing that the existing facility suffers from is they don't have adequate space for many of the classes and programs that the jail and the community want to put on.
So I answer your question.
Yeah, you did.
I just want to thank you for the tour, which was really, really, really informative. I encourage, the other members of the board and staff to get a chance to see what's there and what your plans are for the future. Really good stuff.
Well, thank you. It's a long drive for you, so I appreciate you taking time to come up there. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Rutherford.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it.
Good.
All right. Any?
First time, man.
Yeah. It's my first time. Plenty of stories. Is it your first time? Sounds like you got a story there.
No.
First time I've been inside jail.
I hadn't seen it before, so just.
What a lot of people don't realize is that there's 168 hours in a week. So it's like 4 full-time jobs, and that's why it's so expensive.
Right, you got it. Right. 24/7, 365.
All right, thank you. So when do we have to vote on something?
Well, it won't be until fall, right? That we're scheduled to sometime in the fall. And again, I'm happy to come back. As many times as necessary to answer your question.
Just come here for that
That's fine.
So I believe that the attorney for the Appalachian Power Regional Jail, which is Stephanie Wild, on board, It'll be drafting the resolution and sending it to your county administrator. I guess that won't be Mr. Carter at that point. For you to vote on and approve.
Got it.
The problem is, we don't have the money in most cases to fund that school system, and this kind of jumps over that. I've got a big problem there.
I understand. I do. I realize what the key was. One pool of money, I certainly understand.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you all very much.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. VDOT report.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, thank you. One of the main reasons I want to talk about today, I sent the board a proposed draft of the upcoming, the rural western priority list that we will be looking at as we update our secondary road 6-year plan for FY 23 through 28. This is pretty much the same list as we used last year. Last year, you all, the board prioritized 1 through 7. And this year, if I'm not mistaken, I've looked at the draft of the proposed 6-year plan on how the funding is going to hit as far as which of these projects are pulled off of this list and actually go into what will be the approved revised 6-year plan. And it appears that all the way down to number 7 will make it into the next 6-year plan. We'll make it into the next 6-year plan revision. So what that means is, the board did not want to prioritize any projects any further on this list, which is just a priority list that we work with to get the feedback from the citizens and which roads we want to hard surface. So my purpose for bringing this to you today, at some point, we will need to prioritize the remaining roads on this list, and if there are any that you want to add to this list, let me know. And when we present the draft of the 6-year plan, I will revise those again to put any roads in here that any of your constituents have brought to you that want to be put on this list.
The bottom of this, it's just not in any order, it's just anything left over was stuck in there.
Yes.
So the top 7, we pegged them in.
You pegged in last year. You told me this is our priority.
It doesn't start with the next one and go down.
No.
Yeah.
No. So, beginning at Route 646, Honey Mud Road, from there down, those projects are in no priority. They're just on the list. So, this is the list of roads we had last year. I'm trying to remember of any requests we had since last year, and I know, Jesse, you may have 1 or 2. So, and this is for you all's information, not for any action today. Just to give you the information. Any roads you want added to this list, just let me know. You can go to Mr. Carter, you can email me direct, it doesn't matter. But I just want to get this out in front of the board in preparation of our 6-year plan here.
If we have something, it should come to here and let us, everybody look at it.
Now,
What we're gonna do is just kind of get some ideas, because he can give us some indications of costs at the next meeting, we can just toss them out if we want. But I'm gonna throw a couple roads out there right now.
We know, it's not we know about, what the name says and about what the cost is, so that, we can pretty much see that.
All right.
And, just the preliminary indications on our allocations, we're still going to be around between 628 and 650 on our allocations for unpaid road funding for the next 6 years. That's the level of funding. So, if we have a project that costs 200,000, then you can just figure we get about $50,000 a year. That's what we got to work with.
A third of them right there.
Yeah.
All right, so, do you want us to just shoot you some emails or some thoughts? Would you rather that?
Well, however you all, whatever procedure you want in place to submit, to get me that information is fine.
And then we'll have our work session at the next month to see which ones we want to keep on.
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
I still feel that we should,
All right, well, let's see who's got some roads. Mr. Reed?
well, I don't have them right now, but I mean,
Well, we're gonna be setting a public hearing to add to that list, correct?
We're gonna present this at the public hearing, and that way, if when we have the public hearing, any requests that are not already been brought forward, that any citizens will bring forward.
All right.
We add them, y'all consider them, and make y'all's.
All right, so we'll do it then, the next meeting.
No, you don't have to prioritize anything, and we're good right now, because, we were fortunate that we prioritized 7 projects last year, and that is exactly what it took to allocate the funding for this current revision that we're putting together now.
All right,
Okay?
so at this time, we just need, us to vote on the work session resolution, correct?
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
That's what, if you need to, yeah, that's okay.
No, we have to schedule the public, we have to schedule a public hearing today, if I'm not mistaken.
If we, what do we do? What do we say?
May 10th,
May 10th.
the next regular board of supervisors
May
meeting.
10th is will be the 6-year,
Right, and that'll be the public hearing.
that'll be the public hearing, and Steve will advertise it, and somebody will.
at what point is we gonna sit in and discuss it?
Probably right after that public hearing.
We have a public hearing on what you're gonna do.
Now, this is a public hearing to hear from the constituency about what roads they want to propose and maybe advocate for a road that's on the list.
I think, what you sound like you're talking about, and that night, it's pretty much in essence of this.
You could add to the list.
We can add to the list at that night. Is there a time frame after that that we need to?
We can, sometimes, if there are not any requests and nothing changes, the board approves it that night. If there are additional requests and the board wants to have some additional considerations, or, see, most of the roads, if you get a request for a road at the hearing, say an unpaid road that someone wants paid, pretty much the first 7 projects are pretty much set in stone. Now, most times the board does not change the priority points. So, as far as adding any extra, we can add it to the list. They're not going in the plan anyway. They're not going in the plan anyway. So as far as wanting to approve the 6-year plan that night, you can do that. Unless there's something in there, somebody different happens to make you want to change anything on those first 7 or what's already in the plan.
So we'll get to the meeting and we'll see if there's any major adjustments that we need to make after that.
And you could actually discuss it in the afternoon session as well.
Yeah, right,
One I'm talking about it from 8 to 9.
right. That's where we are too.
Or any additions.
Or any additions that we want to make. And we can figure that out after that meeting, see if any constituents come up with new roads.
But nothing below something that's going to affect what's in the
Right.
6-year plan unless you direct me to make a major change.
Yeah.
I mean, those boards would not do that because those people have already worked.
Those ones that are in line from below 7,
That's what we can talk about, right?
They're just kind of stuck in there.
Yeah,
If they were part of one, they can be adjusted.
but you and I know that, you know, the folks have been waiting to finish Jack's Hill. And all now,
They get a number over that priority number,
they've already been, y'all know how to do it.
So let's go ahead and schedule our public hearing.
Sure.
Mr. Reed.
I would like to move that we adopt resolution R 2022-22. Dutchess County Board of Supervisors authorization for public hearing for fiscal year 23 through 28, secondary 6-year road plan and construction priorities.
All right, motion by Mr. Reed, second from Mr. Farr. Let's do a roll vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. All right. Anything you want us, any other updates?
Any concerns?
All right, Mr. Barton, do you have anything you want to bring up? Mr. Harvey? Mr. Reed?
Yeah, I want to check on behalf of my constituents on Drumheller Lane. This is by the Serenity Ridge Retreat Center. They were wondering how you're doing on brush clearing because there is, according to them, a lot of debris up there that could be removed.
Still.
But I know you've got a zillion things.
No, we're still working on it. That's the ship reserve, if I'm not mistaken, right? They're hoping, I was told last week, they're hoping to finish up this coming week. Hopefully, but yeah.
Okay.
That was what I was told, that by the end of next week, we'll have it up, so
I was gonna say, it sounds like good news, thank you.
Great.
it's gonna heavy lift to get that brush out of there.
Thank you.
All over the state. They're still working on 64.
560, terrible.
All right, is that it for you, Mr. Reed? Thank you. Mr. Parr?
How will it look good when you saw it, or it looks good now?
Looks good, man.
Okay.
Close to 400 tons of, number 21A stone from Mount Anthony's plant. Blue stone right there.
Now, will the cow hollow, that we have on the 6-year, will that take care of that problem area too?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, it needs to be done. Will all cow hollow be done at that point?
Yes. Right.
Good.
That'll be all.
Great, good. All right, I do not have anything at this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Safe travels down to Charlotte. All right, moving on to reports. Mr. Carter?
Good news on the status of the coronavirus in the county. Recently, the Department of Health has revamped its dashboard, but as of April 7th, statistically, the county had a minus 23 of new cases in the county and a 7-day average of new daily cases of minus 12.43. However, they get a minus number, but our trend line is below 0. Yeah, so good news, I suppose, or it is good news. To date, for the health department side, the county's had 2,570 cases of the virus, which was revised from the previous 2,679 cases, and unfortunately 34 deaths. I think that's really no increase since my last report. Per the Center for Disease Control, the county now is at a low risk status instead of a high risk, which is also very good news. And as far as CDC guidance for low risk areas, it's 1, stay up to date on your vaccines, and 2, get tested if you have symptoms. There's other CDC guidance if you are actually impacted by the virus. The 2022 general reassessment, the Board of Equalization continues Their work is in process with appeals. They may have handled all the appeals to date. Their next sessions are scheduled for the first 2 weeks in May, and we may have a couple scheduled for that time period. And the application deadline for appeals is this Friday, the 15th.
I'm going to still heard some in my area, but I haven't heard of the first one.
Do you remember how many we've had? Probably less than 30 or so.
We've had 20.
20 now.
Overcount.
Right. Yeah, we don't have, any, I don't have any information on, decisions that have been made today. So that'll be a report the board makes to this board, once their work is completed. Planning, county and Berkeley group staff, we had a kickoff meeting for the comprehensive plan on March 30th. And the planning department and Berkeley group want to also schedule a similar meeting with the board and the planning commission, which we'll work to schedule with you all and the commission. I think Berkeley's offered some dates and we'll get those out to you. There wasn't significant, I wouldn't describe our planning meeting as anything of great consequence yet. It was just sort of a brief overview. I think the meeting actually lasted via Zoom for probably about 45 minutes, a little bit less than an hour. Although I must say I was pretty impressed with the group, the work, the staff in Berkeley.
Yeah. Was there any mention of timelines?
They provided a schedule, of course, a 2-year schedule, but well, I don't specifically recall.
Just more information gets out. That's
One of the next things they're going to do is somewhat of a countywide assessment of conditions where we are residing in the comprehensive plan, sort of an analysis, a status analysis. There will be, the way I took it was, that'll be somewhat of the heart of how they revamp the plan and then move forward with potential zoning changes proposed to the board. I was pretty well taken by that.
Because I've been contacted by people wanting to know when they should start providing input, but also by some local nonprofits about having certain data available for the first round of data collection. So I'm just trying to
Yeah, I would
get an idea.
refer to Dylan Bishop's office, because Dylan's really the leading the charge on the comp plan more so than my office directly. We're aiding Dylan's effort, of course, but she's really responsible for the project. They do have, they will have planning charrettes planned for the various areas of the county, but that's I think some time off.
Okay. But if you did get an updated timeline on the original ones with the original application, if you could send that around, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I want to say that they presented a timeline, or we saw something that's more of a snapshot. We'll follow.
Thank you.
Of course. With regard to the smart scale, we're still working with the Planning District Commission and VDOT staff in the Lynchburg District, and we did submit through the PDC 3 pre-applications to VDOT for projects that were previously submitted to the last round of smart scale. Those include an intersection improvement at Route 29 in Cal Hill Drive with the signalized intersection. And Rick Youngblood will be coming to, I think, the May 10th meeting to discuss that overall project with the board, because they want to do, if you recall, at Woods Mill, this R-cut design. That's what I think is their primary goal for revamping that intersection. So Rick's going to come over and report on that to the board, take questions, etc. So that's one project. Another is a roundabout at 151 and 6 in Martin Store, and then grading improvements at 151 and 10 Mark Drive in Hampton. We should know something, I think, in July or August, if any of those 3 applications are approved to go to final application status. That's the way the program works. So still, we're in the queue, but not necessarily approved for anything yet. New county office building, we did receive, following advertisement of request for proposals, 3 responses by the March 25th deadline. That's sort of in review. I'm hoping that we will interview at least 2 of those firms next week or the following week, and then make a recommendation to the board. Yeah. County River Water and Sewer System, and we're still, working on repair and re-installation of pump number 1 at the primary pumping station on Route 56 East. We're also going to purchase a new pump that will, hold as a backup. Then we've also conferred, as was requested at the last board meeting, with the Service Authority staff on the repair of out-of-service fire hydrants, and what their staff indicated to both Paul Dressel and myself, direct conversations with George Miller, they're just experiencing significant supply issues. They can't get the parts. So the only thing we can do is encourage them to be as proactive as possible about that.
I understandably, we have trouble getting 500 plus.
Yeah, both Paul and I discussed it with them. And that's the input both from Jeff Brantley and from George Miller.
Well, maybe at some point, if it's a supply problem, then you may be looking at another resource.
Yeah, that was suggested, or there are other alternatives. George said they were definitely trying to.
Everybody's had that same problem.
Yeah, exactly. They're certainly aware of it, and I don't think they're resting on it, but it's basically a supply chain issue.
Let something happen, then when those happens and we're not working, you see the hell with it, man.
Oh, yeah, of course. No, I understand. Hopefully they do. I think we've reported this to the board before, hopefully aware of it. We had a termite issue in the hallway where you would come out of the judge's chambers. That area of the court, like the original 1940s addition area. The jury rooms off that hallway in the judge's office. But we had termite infestation there, and it had been going on for some time. I mean, we regularly treat the building, but for whatever reason. So we're in the process now of bidding out a project to repair that damage. And unfortunately, it's structural an issue also. We're going to have to go underneath the flooring and shore up the subflooring. Just the engineers, when they came over, noticed that the project where we did phase 2 of the courthouse, where they ran wires and piping, etc., maybe it undermined the existing structure somewhat. So we're going to reinforce that in addition to repairing the termite damage. So I think we've either put that out to bid or we're about to do so.
Has it been treated with?
Yeah, we've actually just changed companies to be even more proactive. We were concerned that the existing company wasn't as due diligent as we wanted them to be. So it's not a large area that was damaged, but the overall concern is the underlying structure for the flooring.
The kid come that way very quickly.
Yeah. Well, the public, as you know, is routed a different way. Only the judge and juries, I guess, are accessing the courtroom now through that hallway. The budget for FY23, board will have a public hearing on the 28th of this month to set the real estate tax rate as an outcome of the 22 general reassessment. And you also consider increases in the transient occupancy tax at that time. And then, you also set tax rates for the other property taxes on the 28th. Then the budget public hearing on the FY23 budget is scheduled for May 10th. As you all are aware, you'll have to wait at least 7 days after the budget public hearing before the budget for FY23 to be adopted. I would encourage the board, if you haven't taken a look at the staff reports, they're really chock full of information this month. Something very interesting is the significant uptick in building permits. I mean, the department is actually going to exceed in revenue the total expense for the operation department in a given year. That's usually doesn't happen. Just as one little tidbit of information, there's a lot more in there. Now, I encourage you, we may want to drag Maureen Kelly over here and give a more in-depth report on all of her office activities. She's a little shy about it, but she's been very proactive in securing grants for the county and marketing the county throughout the Commonwealth and beyond. And I think you probably need to hear a lot more about that.
Great. Invite her out. Let's pick them up.
Questions?
Any questions for Steve at this time? No? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, board reports. Mr. Barton. Mr. Harvey, please meet. Mr. Reed.
No reports, but that's correct.
Okay, sure. Let me get to that. Mr. Parr.
Nothing that had already been reported.
I don't have anything to quote other than PDC's, a lot of work with RHP talking about affordable housing, and of course, a lot of compliments to our executive there, Christine. She's been starting to get a full filling out the staff roles that are empty. So she's done a great job with that. So starting to hopefully see some more movement and have a little bit more people who are especially in transportation, planning, etc. So that's all I got. Moving into appointments, we do have one appointment today. It is the MACA Board of Directors. We have, here's the two applications. Mr. Sandquist is here today, and another gentleman. Amanda, do you have anything to say? Add on to it?
So, yes, we have the two, Mr. Sandquist and Mr. Maranzano.
Yep.
I did provide you copies of a letter from Sarah Hanks with MACA. She highly recommended Mr. Sandquist and hopes that the board would consider his appointment so that he may work with them as soon as possible.
All right, so at this time, do we have a motion for somebody today?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that Chris Sandquist be appointed to the MACA Board of Directors.
Great, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Barton. Let's just do a vote without objection. Is there any objections to Mr. Sandquist? Hearing none. Congratulations. Welcome to the board. Thank you, sir. All right. I will say this, Skip, Mr. Maranzano, he's in your district.
Yeah, I talked to him.
See, ask him about filling another role that's coming up. Tell him, keep an eye out. Like if Java or John or something of that nature comes available. He wants
for some reason.
No, I think he's a great guy. But I was just saying, just let him know that to make sure he keeps his eye
I
out.
thought there were two.
No, just one.
Okay.
So keep an eye out and just tell him, hey, we'll try to get you on something that's coming up that'll be similar. All right? Great. Questions are done.
Call him and tell him.
Correspondence. Mr. Parr?
I have none.
Mr. Reed?
Actually, I think this was actually a report that I neglected to give
That's
at that
fine.
time.
Go
Go
for
bring
it.
it up. This Friday is the deadline for applications for county administrator.
Yes.
And we have, I think, somewhere around 10, maybe a few more than that.
We have 11 definitely as of today.
Okay, so things are moving on. We have some choices. Some better than others, of course, but we'll be looking at them all next week.
Yes. And hopefully, yeah.
So we'll need to set a time.
We need to set a time next week together.
Is that something we can get a copy of, not the whole application, but just kind of give us an idea who's applying?
Yeah, when we get them all together,
Yeah, once we have all the applications
Yeah.
together by Friday, then we can, give a little thumbnail of each one and send that around. So then you'll know who's there, because we don't have them all in.
You get them.
You can send
You'll get 'em.
resumes.
Yeah,
You want to see those.
you'll get access to them when the applications are done. All right, that was correspondence. Mr. Harvey, other than Livingston, it's been a very big correspondence. Hopefully we can get some answers out of the Service Authority over the next several weeks. Robert, it's your district, so we need Mr. Hicks. That's your Service Authority representative. Maybe y'all get a chance to talk when this is over with. All right. Moving on from there, directives. Mr. Reed, you said you had one.
I've had a couple of constituents getting a hold of me about the audibility on our YouTube channel. The reports I've received are that the people speaking at the podium are a lot more clearer than they used to be, but the board seems to be less clear.
Gotcha.
And I think that's our tendency to be here for a long time and just really not focus on it.
Right.
Maybe a suggestion would be lapel microphones. The only problem with that is that if you mutter something, someone's going to hear you. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. It's just, we might sacrifice that for.
We need to practice doing better jobs at speaking into the microphone.
Yeah, I think it would be,
Pull your microphone.
every once in a
closer to
while, remind ourselves that we should speak it, because I totally forget all the time.
you. Right.
Yeah, that's the guidance that IT departments provide, it's speaking to the microphones.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need a little sign that Amanda can like push a button on.
Yeah, put a sign
so
right
they
out
can't hear
there,
it.
right, speaking to the mic.
So when we start, put the microphones right here.
That's right. That'll do it.
All right.
And give Candy the button.
Great. Any directives? Any other,
That's it.
all right. Practice better due diligence.
I just did want to make sure that the continuation of our meetings do make, are going to be streamed.
Yeah. They always, I think that's, meetings are. All right. Any other directives? Mr. Parr, Mr. Harvey, Mr. Barton? So let's go ahead and get a motion to, or any unfinished business. Staff good? Wow, we actually had a very efficient day today. We're gonna get some work done. Let's go ahead and motion to continue this meeting to 7 o'clock. Yes, full night. All right, we have a motion for Mr. Parr. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second for Mr. Reed. Vote about acclamation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? None. See y'all at 7.